So as you might have imagined, I was recording the video and nothing happened. So now I'm a little bit stressed and desperate of finishing this video as quick as possible because I forgot everything about say. Damn, the thing wasn't recording. So I was recording, but the voice sounded horrible, sounded like a robot, and I didn't understood why. Because the levels of the microphone were over the levels of the microphone, that the level of the microphone were on the level of the microphone, but it was over the level of the microphone, so it sounded like an alien. It sounded very funny. How to chop the aiming break? Easy. For that, you need the folder, which is here, for the Megadol Breaker pack. I don't post it here, the link on YouTube is to my Google Drive, but eventually, if I post it here, I don't want it to be like, oh, you are distributing some free shit, and somebody comes and claims, oh, that is mine, and somebody else says, oh, no, that is mine, and they fight because it's free. No, I don't want that. So I will post it on the website, and you can grab it there. Some people have it already. Yeah, right. Awesome. How to chop the aiming break? You have this, and you enter one, and then you load it in Renoise. So I'm about to make two approaches. One, if you use Renoise as your main platform, because it is more of a musical instrument than a digital audio workstation. I guess the part of the digital audio workstation it comes to is because it can use external audio interfaces and VST and audio units plugins. But I don't know, like the fact that it has a tracker makes it a lot more of a musical instrument. You go to sampler. I have the whole thing down here. Let's erase it. No. And so you load it, and you go to sensitivity. When you open Renoise, this is at 50, and so you change it to 12. And then you go to this, which is the automatic transient and beats and things sensor that places markers on it automatically, and it doesn't work with all breaker loops, but for this case of the 50 directories it works with them, with each of them. It's really easy. It does it automatically, and all of them have this coincidence with the keyboard. And you can go mad really easily. So the point that I think is important is that once you get there, you should select. If you don't do this step, you will never be able to synchronize outside of the margin of 4x4. If you change this to a certain velocity speed or whatever, it might not be as you thought it will be because of some reason. And so you always check this step. Right click on each of them, on one of them, sorry. Click and select all. You go to beat sync, prepare, and this is an interesting step. Let's suppose that before we do this, let's suppose that we have a song here. And so we want to make this is in gosh, 64. Then you have here 4x4 because the units of the duration are 4. The multiples are 4, so the subdivision of the lines is going to be every 4 lines, one strong pulse. And so with this in mind, you can only always have fourth notes. If you change it, you may have triplets, tuplets, one-eighths, etc., 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 and increasing 2. And the trick here, let's make it with a bit of a breaker Megadol approach, which is 100 BPM with 12 lines per beat. This makes subdivisions with multiples of 12. A multiple of a number is the result of that number being multiplied by another number. For example, one of the multiples of 2 is 4. Why? Because if I multiply 2 times 2, I obtain a multiple, which is 4. And so these are the multiples, the results of the multiplication tables. And so I have multiples of 4 here, which are not multiples of 12. And musically speaking, the multiples of 12 do not start at 4, they start at 3, musically speaking. If you talk about it mathematically, it's different, because mathematically it is incorrect to say that a multiple of a number is below the level of that number. If you put that into a computer, it will do nothing and throw an error. It will say it's impossible. Almost as stupid as saying, if I have a box with 7 doors, how come you say you have a box with 6 doors? Well, magic of music. It throws an interesting result that humanity has accepted through ages. But yeah, a multiple of 12, crazy as it sounds, is 3. And so, for example, if you have heard Wandering Around the Cornfield at Night, Smells Like Yogurt Spirit from which album is that? I have so many albums that I don't remember them yet. Oh fuck. Am I recording my screen? No, I'm not recording. Oh gosh, I can't configure the entire thing, but it doesn't matter. Let me find it. Which albums are in 12? Let me tell you which albums are in 12. Pure 12. Yes Daddy Cutie Fruity is in 12. Daddy Sound System is in 1200. Lico Dangerous Liquor is in 1200. Yeah, these are Pontiac is at 100 BPM, also 12 lines. And this is how it eventually sounds. If you have a 12 here, and you remember to have the multiples of 3, also of 12, starting at 3 and 6. But because, remember, the smallest unit that you can use is the one that makes the constant rhythmic pattern, the so to speak, the rhythm pattern. There is this harmonic rhythm, and there's the rhythmic rhythm pattern or pattern rhythm. I don't know if you understand it, but you need a unit that establishes the character of the music. You need a unit that establishes the motion of the music. And so you have it here, 3. And we need to have coherence with what we are doing. So we said 16, but we have that 12 is not a multiple of 16. I mean, 16 is not a multiple of 12. In this case, it matters. Sometimes you say, well, addition and multiplication, commutative relation. Yes, but in music it doesn't make sense to have commutative relations, commutative laws, and commutative interactions, because if you say so, you end up trying to play musical notes that are not available on that instrument, but that are available on the other instrument, and if you try commutatively, it goes crazy. And mathematics is about logic. And so we have here that this is 16 and they are beat sync. We want to synchronize this with the tempo and the lines per beat of the song. Sometimes people only synchronize it to the beat, to the BPM, but I, because it's break or because it's jungle, sometimes prefer to synchronize them to both them so that I can guarantee that the resolution is also applied to the sampler. And so this value here says 3 because it is the distance, the smallest distance. The smallest distance is what keeps the music moving fast or slow. So for example, this. I have 3 between them. I should sync this with the other. So beat sync value goes sync with, what is it called? Step length. These two have to have the same value. So if you do, for example, the experiment. So far it's interesting, but you remember that if you bit sync them, you have, because it is a Amen loop, you have to say that the mode is set up as time stretch for percussion. One shot to hear the entire loop when you are out. So when the sequencer is stopped, you can play the keyboard once and twice, and you don't have to keep it pressed till the end of the duration of the loop. For example, this plays it shorter because I need to keep it pressed all the way till the end of the loop. So it makes it easier to hear what you're doing. And so now it makes sense. But there is a little bit of an incoherence here, because we said that the multiples of the entire session is going to be multiples of 12. Here we have 12, and here we have 12 sub 3, if you will. But this needs to be the size of the multiples of 12. So what are the multiples? The multiple of the number multiplied by another number. So for example, 12 times 2 is 24. If we had a multiple called 24, yes, we have one, because 12 times 2. And now it makes sense, but you could make it, I mean, musically speaking, that's too short to be called music. It is short necessarily to be called for example, the frame on which you are about to make a loop. Ideally, if you were to use 100 BPM with 12 lines per bit resolution, 48 is perfect to make loops, to create loops. If you had a drummer and you want to record it, you will record it at 48 and then you chop that the way we are doing it. But once you're in a song, if you check the Renoise files of Megadol, the smallest unit is 96, the medium unit is 192, and the standard unit is always 384, which is also a multiple of 12, but in a bigger sense, so that you can have melodic development in a more uniform way, so that it doesn't change abruptly. I don't know. And so that is how you chop the Amen break, I guess. This button is cool because it doesn't distract you when you play each note. But if you need to look at each of the samples when you play them, you can, for example, here. But if you don't have to, you can stay there forever. Awesome button. Yeah, that is if you do Renoise as your main musical instrument and as your main digital audio workstation. But if you're not on that, you can use it with the basic version of Renoise, with the demo version of Renoise, which is as follows. You go and right click, select all, and then you click over one of the samples and you say save all samples as Deck Bad Moon Rising. For example, here you could have had it and save each of the samples, and it will give you all the samples and you can create them. And then you can have them chopped, use them on another tracker like the Milky Tracker, like the ones that are not as expensive. I mean, some people have said that it is expensive. I found it is pretty cheap for what you get. And so it depends on your approach. But if you don't have the cash, if you don't have the availability to put money on the internet or whatever other condition, you can use the demo version. What I used when I was really young is I will use the demo version and I will do the entire song because it allows you to save, and then hit play on the song and have it record somewhere else, like with a cable, take it out to a DAT or to another computer or to a phone, and then master it on that phone. Good old YouTube. And so these with the free version, with the demo version, you export them and you have them, and then these are all the samples exported one by one. And this, if the logic that you want to use is in another tracker where you have this granularity factor that you can mold it and have not necessarily one small loop chopped multiple times, but rather one infinite loop. Yeah, praise the one infinite loop logic. Thank you, Renoise. Hell yeah. And that's what makes it really cool and interesting, in my opinion, that you have one big infinite loop rather than having to feel constrained and having to feel, this restriction that the loop is about to finish and I don't know what else to do. Or you can chop them the traditional way in a DAW, which is you have this. Oh gosh. You have it and you load it over the DAW, for example, Ableton, Logic. I don't know if Pro Tools allows to do that, but whatever the platform that you're using that you know how to do it, you drop it and then you start chopping it, and then you reorganize and have different forms and shapes, the reorganized loop, the chops of the loop. Yeah, that's how you chop the Amen sample, the Amen loop, I guess. Yes, stop it.